Welcome to Season 6 of the Dramatists Guild presents Talkback, sponsored by the Dramatists Guild Foundation. I'm your host, Christine Toy Johnson. We're so happy to be back. And this season is all about reinvention. With so much change going on in our industry and our country, I wanted to sit down with some of my fellow writers who also serve on the Dramatists Guild Council and ask them about the many ways they're writing in and about the moment we're in. I hope you'll be as inspired and fascinated by their responses as I've been. In this episode, I talked to award-winning playwright Lloyd Suh about his speculative future plays, uplifting other writers through service, and the shift in new play development. Lloyd Suh's works include The Chinese Lady, The Heart Sellers, and the Pulitzer finalist, The Far Country. He teaches playwriting at Princeton University and serves on the council of the Dramatists Guild. Here we go. Hi, Lloyd.
Hey, Christine, how are you?
I'm so glad to talk to you today. Thanks for coming in and chatting with me.
Of course, anytime. Thanks for, hosting in this beautiful room.
Yeah, I live here now. So, as I've told you, this season is all about reinvention, and I do think that as creative people, we're always reinventing ourselves and always finding new moments in the climate we're in. But it occurs to me that especially over the last 5 years, we have been through so many changes and so many unpredictable times. So really wanted to ask you about that. How have the times changing every day really affected especially your creative life, how you express yourself in many different ways? And I know that's an intentionally broad question, but I wonder if you have initial thoughts about that.
Great, yeah. I mean, there's the one big way, and I don't know how much of this is related to, like what the precipitating causes are, but it feels like informed by just the way the world is, which is that I had spent like about a decade of my career writing these plays about history. Some of them like pretty intensely researched plays into forgotten or underexamined moments in Asian American history. But since over the last few years, like I guess a couple of years after the pandemic, I've completely switched gears. Like I feel like I've satisfied whatever that historical impulse was. And I'm now doing this very new thing for me, which is I've been writing speculative fiction about the near future. And so that feels like just a completely different way of working, I suppose. I would say that I'm doing this, like plays about the future, I'm doing this kind of in the same way I would write about the past, only it's about the future. But it does feel like a seismic shift. It feels like something like a reinvention.
Yeah, that's so interesting because when you're looking at the past and when you're looking at the future, you're still bringing your own, obviously, your own point of view and what you hope it is, yeah. Right? Even in the history, you're interpreting it and getting things out of it that you hope you will, I imagine.
Totally, yeah. And, like even in writing about the past, like I had to do this thing of, the thing that you do, which is figure out what is your way into history, what is, whether it's stylistically or thematically as a writer. And so, even in writing about history, it wasn't so much, like these, grand historical epics that detail a lot of facts or anything like that. They tended to be focused on really individual and intimate human stories. And so it's the same approach with the future. Like I'm just thinking about, how much world building do you have to do, or do you just try and focus, more narrowly on these individual human stories?
And also it seems like because knowing a lot of your work that it is the emotional history, the emotional life of the worlds that you're investigating. I wanted to ask you about this term you used. What did you say?
Speculative fiction. Yeah, it's about, in a lot of ways, speculating about what our worst impulses, and our best impulses are, and how they might manifest themselves in the future. So it's in a lot of ways an exercise in imagining what's to become of these impulses, and finding a balance that not only serves as like a caution against the things we're doing wrong, but maybe a encouragement for the things we're doing right. Just to think about and uplift the values that I want to live inside of as a writer. That as I'm working on these projects, getting in rooms with collaborators, want to lift up as things that are the things we want to endure.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Are you doing it as sort of a song cycle of plays, as it were? You mentioned earlier that you had been doing a lot of historical plays, and so I wondered, for both sets of time, do you envision an arc of these plays?
It's a great question. Yeah, not while I'm doing it, I guess. Like in terms of the history plays, those really came one after the other. I never really thought about what the end point was until I got there. So I sort of became aware as I kept doing it that they were in conversation with each other, and that they felt like they were building towards something.
Mm-hmm. How many plays are in the package of history plays?
Boy, it depends on what you count. Because I think, it's a hard question to answer. Like I think there are 5 full-length plays that deal with these specific or under-examined moments in Asian American history. But there are plays that I guess you could argue are part of that, and there's some shorter works that could fit in that if possible. So it really depends on how you count. I would say between 5 and 8, somewhere around.
Have you ever seen them or done them all together?
No.
That would be so interesting. We have to have a Lloyd Suh play festival of history plays. I would be there in the front row. And then, so what about your future plays?
Yeah, I'm kind of doing those one at a time too, like with an awareness that they are in conversation with each other, and who knows where they're going to lead.
So you just are following your impulses and your inspiration.
Yeah, totally.
And how has every day is something different, especially I would say since the pandemic shut down.
Yeah.
So do you find yourself shifting with the times from day to day or month to month? I know that's sort of a hard question to answer when you think about inspiration and how it leads you, but I'm just curious.
Yeah. No, I think it's I think that my doing this is probably a symptom of that. Like it's something that happened during the pandemic where I was thinking about these history plays in a really confusing context, because during the pandemic, I was writing this play called The Heart Sellers, which is set in the 1970s against the backdrop of Watergate, and thinking about Richard Nixon, thinking about the early 1970s, that a very tumultuous time in American history and in world history, and writing about that simultaneous to an obviously very tumultuous time in American, a different tumultuous time in American history. And I could feel the echoes, and as a writer, you want to lean into those echoes. And so thinking about, how does this play now becomes an exercise in thinking about how do I make it feel really 70s, yet echo in today.
Right.
But then the next wrinkle there is that theaters were shut down. Everything was shut down. We all wondered maybe we're all going to die. Yeah. Maybe theater will never come back. So to even think about what is it to write about now when any possibility of a future audience is future tense.
Right.
And future tense in a way where you're like, I don't know if it's going to be 1 year, 5 years, 10 years,
right.
Who knows? And I realized that, that's kind of the act of writing a play anyway, because it's never that fast. So you can't, to think about what is it to write about now is to think about what is it to write about in the near future. Right?
Yeah.
So it becomes then a projection into something else. So it made me feel like, oh, to write about the early 70s and to make it feel like it echoes now, and to make it feel like it might echo when and if this play ever makes its way in front of an audience, is an act of aspiration on one hand, but also an act of making the themes and the impact of the play portable across time. So it's like, oh, I can't just write about now, because what is now? I have to, do this in a way that, if it's 2020, if it's 1973, if it's 2025, that it might still have that same resonance.
Yeah, right. I think it's really interesting that I know that as of 2016, there are these markers, 2016, 2020, 2025, right? Yeah. For a lot of people. And used to be, you could write time, the present, right. And you can't do that anymore. And I think that's really an interesting point that you make about making those stories portable, and what does it mean to do that and reflect where you are at any given moment in your own creative energy and impulses. Yeah. Yeah. How have you found things in the theatrical ecosystem changing over the past 5 years especially?
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah. I try not to be overly reactive, and I try not to, spend too much time thinking about it, because it can be very depressing, but it does feel like there's just a lot less. There's a lot less in the field in terms of opportunity. Mm-hmm. Some theaters are shutting down, some theaters are programming a lot less. Some theaters are forced to program more conservatively. A lot of early career support, developmental opportunities are going away or diminishing.
And do you think that's because of funding primarily, or?
I think that's definitely part of it. I think part of it seems to be people still trying to adjust from the pandemic and the loss of those years. But it's definitely there. It's definitely something that I'm aware of, even as I try not to overreact to it.
I feel like there are ways that we are always trying to brainstorm new ways to develop work and to keep putting our stories out there. I know we talk about this a lot at the Dramatists Guild, how we can uplift each other and ourselves. Yes. Do you have any insight into what you would wish for if we could say, okay, we're going to band together and help bring new stories out into the world?
Yes, yeah. I think, I think about this a lot. I have, because I'm teaching undergraduates now, I've had conversations with graduating seniors describing what I just described, how the landscape is not as friendly to be graduating, to a graduating senior as it was 5 years, 5 years ago was worse, but like 10 years ago. But I think that the good news there is that there's a realignment happening, and whenever there's a realignment happening, then there's opportunity, right? A challenge, it is an opportunity. And I remember when I got out of graduate school, it was 2001. I graduated here in New York. I went back to Indiana for the summer, and I came back like days before 9/11.
Oh, wow.
And it felt like that, the world changed.
Yeah.
The world changed then, and it felt like there was a realignment. There was a shifting of what the world was and what the world could be and what the world was going to be like after that. So that's the way I sort of entered into postgraduate professional life. And it felt like the reaction there was so much grassroots activity. And that's the stuff that really got me going, these opportunities, people creating their own things. So many people created their own companies to find their own opportunities. A lot of culturally specific theaters began during that time. A lot of places grew, these small companies grew. Like at the time when I graduated, there were three organizations that were really instrumental in my development. One of them was the Mayu Writers Lab, which came out of those years. It was like a grassroots, culturally specific organization that really came out of that. Somebody, Sung No, was just like, I just want to create, I need to create something, so we made it. And the membership of that organization, especially in the early aughts, were like, yeah, we're going to create this thing. Second Generation was a culturally specific Asian American theater company devoted to developing early career talent. And that was created during that time. This guy, Willie Yang, just said, I'm going to make this. I'm going to make something. And he just made it. And the other was The Lark, which began, I believe, in '99, but it became what it is like in that early aughts period.
So similar time period.
It's all like,
and you were in all of them.
Yeah, and it was a realignment. And like none of these things were really fancy. Actually, I think of a fourth one, which is Youngblood at Ensemble Studio Theater. Like I remember, like it's really hard to get into Youngblood now, but at the time it was not, because it was so informal. It was not, it was really like a perfect example of the adage that, you get what you put into it. You can make of it what you have a lot of agency in a time like this. If you want to create something, because there's a realignment happening, there's more opportunity to do that. There's more need, there's more hunger, and therefore, hopefully, there's more opportunity for it to grow. And so the thing that I would love the most for the field is for a similar groundswell of, just people making their own opportunities, building their own things, not mourning the loss of organizations like The Lark or Second Generation, but who's building the thing that's going to take its place. This is the time to build it. And I think that that's what I would love, is that if that kind of thing gets built organically by the artists who need it, who want it, and who have the capacity and community to make it sustainable.
Yeah, I think that's always the dream too. And with these days, it does seem a little easier in some ways to gather people and even who live in different places and build community, which I think is so important.
Yeah.
You've said the word realignment several times, and I just want to explore that a little more. What does that mean to you?
Yeah. That's a great question. I guess I don't totally know. I mean, what it seems to me is about realignment of where power is, but also like what do we expect? Like when we're
interesting, expectations.
When we're there, like what do we expect? What is the like? Okay, I have a play. Where do I hope for it to land? What do I want it to do in the world? And I think that for a stretch of time, it was like, oh, these are the places you want to go. And maybe those aren't the places you want to go anymore.
Right.
And that's a little bit scary, but it's also very, very exciting. It's potentially very exciting.
Yeah, I often think about this, how there are really a finite number of productions, a finite number of brick and mortar places, right? But an infinite number of stories, and the stories that we are compelled to write in order to get them out in the world. And what does that mean? How do we do that? Yeah. So I think what you're saying is so important and inspiring, because we do need to take that agency and figure out ways to send the stories out in the world.
Yeah. I mean, and I will say, like I don't know if this is controversial to say, but I don't know anybody who like loves the regional theater and commercial theater model. And it's like, oh, the way we're doing it, that's awesome. Like this is the way I would have built it. I don't know what the alternatives are, but there are lots of people all over, who probably have ideas. And I think that those ideas are things that I would love anybody with an idea to try to follow through on. Because it's like really, what I mean by realignment, I guess, is aspirational. I don't know that it's something that I can point to and I say, see, it's happening. But I see it as something potentially pretty exciting.
I spoke with Lynn Nottage and Lauren Gunderson in season 5, and Lynn really talked a lot about finding new places, imagining different spaces where our stories could be told, and breaking out of the thought that they can only be done in a quote-unquote traditional theater space. So I think that is something to really explore. How are your students responding in the moment to all of these things we've been talking about?
Yeah, it really varies. I teach right now. I teach undergraduate non-majors, which is it's a different exercise than when I used to teach like in MFA programs.
Right.
Because when I'm teaching MFA programs, there's this real obligation and this real tangible, like palpable urgency of like, oh, I've invested all this time and money and energy into something that when I come out of, I should be prepared for the field to become a professional. And so having those conversations can be very depressing to talk about like the way the landscape looks now. Right now, because I'm teaching undergraduate non-majors, instead of that, at least when we're in the classroom and when we're in a conversation, it can be focused on something else. It can be focused on the hopeful, the possibility, the freedom, the imagination, because there is time. There is, I try to prioritize that space. It's like, oh no, this is space for you to imagine and discover and not think about that landscape, and not think about practical ways to, have to advance yourself and navigate through that landscape.
It's really freeing, I bet.
It is very freeing, yeah. Although when I talk to graduating seniors, that conversation shifts then. So when I talk to graduating seniors, then it becomes a similar conversation to what I was having in MFA programs that becomes really about the nitty-gritty. It becomes about life choices. It becomes about possibility. It becomes about like, what are the things that you're willing to and eager to put your energy and time behind? What does it look like when you think about my life's work? Like, you kind of have to start thinking about that.
Yeah.
Like, what is my life's work? What are the things that I have to do to prepare myself for that? And again, that's a conversation that is a tiny bit scary, but also, I think more than the scary, it's exciting and full of possibility.
Yeah.
And so, that's the thing I try to prioritize.
Everyone should have you as a teacher. I think that's my takeaway from what you just said. I wanted to ask you about what inspires you currently. When you are floating around in your imagination, and do you think, oh, I want to write a new play because I'm inspired by XYZ, or how does that come to you?
Yeah, it comes from really just thinking about the future. I mean, the idea of writing about the future, I didn't have to spend a lot of time thinking about it. It was just this realization of that's all I really think about, as somebody who, I feel so lucky to be in the room with these undergraduates. And to feel and remember what that sense of possibility in play felt like. It's reinvigorating. It makes me think about what kind of future I would want and aspire to have happen for them, but also as a parent to 3 growing children. There's this sense of how do I prepare them for the world, but also how do I prepare the world for them? What can I do to make the world something that they can thrive in?
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think one of the great things about writing is that you can make it up.
Yes. Yes.
Right? The way you want to see it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the world the way you want to see it.
Yeah.
Do you feel a certain responsibility to reflecting the present in any of your writing?
Probably, although I don't work too hard at that because I feel like because I'm in the present, it's the only place I can really draw from. Mm-hmm. That if I'm thinking, even as I was writing about the past or now that I'm writing about the future, it's all happening like at the time that I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So it's all rooted in the things that are preoccupying me, the news that I've read that day, the values that I sort of hope to instill in whatever it is that I'm working on, that those feel like they're the only thing I can draw on is the now. So I don't have to work hard to let that be a part of it.
Yeah.
I just have to make sure that I'm feeling it, that that I'm absorbing all of those impulses, those present day impulses, and that I'm being honest about them, so that even if I'm writing about a different time, they're still there.
Yeah, I think that's something that we struggle with often, right? Being present enough to bring our whole selves to something. I wanted to shift the conversation a little bit to the advocacy work that we do on the Council of the Dramatists Guild. So the Dramatists Guild exists and was created for the protection of theatrical writers. We've talked about how to not only uplift the theatrical writer, but protect our copyright, protect our ourselves against censorship, etc. What do you feel are the priorities of the writer, professional writer today, and how would you like to see us move forward to protect ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, it's I guess it's related to what I was saying before about the building of grassroots opportunities, the building of communities, and it's really about investing in leaders, in thought leaders, in people who are going to take action, investing in those kinds of voices. Because, the thing about being a playwright economically is that you kind of have to be a leader. You kind of have to be your own advocate as well. I find this immensely valuable, to be with other writers, to be with other playwrights, to be in community with them, in conversation with them. Because, I mean, the thing about this job is it can be really lonely if your relationship with the field is just about your plays.
Right.
It's very lonely. It can be, everybody has their ups and downs, their good days and bad days, good years, bad years, good decades, So it's like, it can be really discouraging if that's your only relationship with it. Mm-hmm. But if you're an advocate for others, if you're an advocate for the community, if you're out there building things, building opportunities, working on behalf of other writers, as I've had the privilege to do for many, many years, I get to feel like I contribute through my advocacy for other writers. That I look at, writers who have been through programming that I've been a facilitator for, or a program director for. I can look at what they put out in the world and say, that's what I'm putting out in the world too. Mm-hmm. It's not just my plays, it's this wide range of writing that I believe in and want to see have life in the world. And I get to help with that. And that feels like, it's just a better life. It's just a better way to feel like you're contributing to the field. And so, I think that investing in those leaders who can build things to be of value to other writers, that's how you do it. That's how you do it. It's just like the more building that people can do, the more advocacy people can do, investing in those people is going to have so much more impact.
Thank you for all the ways that you have been doing that for many years. You have really been at the forefront of so many programs and uplifting other writers?
I mean, it's just such a privilege. It really is a privilege just to be in those rooms. Like, I feel lucky that I got to be in the room with some of these writers doing those, doing the work that they're doing. It's lucky. And I encourage any writer, if you can be that kind of advocate, it's going to make your life better. But also, if you can help uplift other writers and be in their orbit and just be in conversation with them, it's going to make you a better writer too.
I think that's such a beautiful thing, and I know as someone who is also very committed to the idea of service and helping other people in the community, be in community, that there is really something to be said for that, how it's not about competition or whose play is the best play when you are in community with other writers and sharing information and sharing inspiration. It's something that's really cannot be underestimated. Thank you so much to all our guests this season. This podcast is sponsored by the Dramatists Guild Foundation, a nonprofit organization that fosters playwrights, composers, lyricists, and librettists at all stages of their careers. DGF supports these writers with financial grants, free space to create new works, and career resources and programs. If you are a dramatist seeking support or are a lover of theater who wants to support the future of storytelling, visit dgf.org or follow at dgfound to learn more. Talkback is executive produced by me, Christine Toy Johnson, and edited and recorded by Bruce Johnson. Our music is by Andrea Daly. As always, to be continued.